How aggressive can we be when repotting pines for bonsai? Can pines be bare rooted and combed out? It's a source of confusion. Some people insist that they can, whereas others stick to seemingly rigid rules like only prune 30% of the roots or never bare root pines. Today I'm repotting this nursery Mugo pine and showing you exactly how I remove most of the field soil, prune the roots and set it up for healthy recovery. So if you have a pine to bonsai, how should you treat the enormous root ball? And the biggest obstacle is the height. To reduce it, we'll start at the surface and work our way down, searching for the nabari. The nabari is where the trunk transitions into the root system. In a large nursery container filled with compost, the roots grow ever longer as the tree is up-potted into bigger and bigger containers. At this stage, I'm only pruning roots that prevent me making progress. It's the fine roots that supply the tree with the water and nutrients. So if we come in and heavily reduce these, the tree's going to struggle and maybe even die. These circling roots are evidence that it was once in a much smaller pot and it was removed from that pot and put in a larger container to continue to grow for the landscape. These circling roots definitely aren't an attractive nabari, but there's a limit to how much we can do in this sitting. At the end of these really long ones, we've got little fine feeder roots, and it's those that supply the tree with water. So if we cut all the roots back, there might not be enough to sustain the tree. Can't pines just grow them back like a broadleaf tree would? Well, they can. The older the wood that we cut back to, the more they struggle to produce new shoots or roots. Starting to undercut the trunk now, and I can't feel anything structural down there. I've taken quite a lot off the top, so I'm just going to shave a little bit off the bottom now. There's actually not a lot of root down here. I'll loosen it up. Next, I'll loosen the perimeter. Again, there's not a ton of roots around here. These clods of soil that have got no roots in, you might as well remove them. I don't want to remove too much, but if there's literally no root in there, it's serving no purpose other than taking up space. The length of some of these roots is crazy. Finally, just a bit of a trim anywhere there's any breakages, because the clean cuts heal faster. Also, cutting them back a bit, I don't want to remove too much, but cutting them back a bit is going to stimulate new lateral roots closer to the trunk where we want them. That's split on the end there. And that one seems to be broken, so we'll go back to this lateral root here. I tie the tree into the pot to keep it nice and secure. The container I've chosen is not too big and not too small. Resist the temptation to put it in a giant pot having done this work. The soil is a nice airy mix of akadama, pumice and lava rock. And the odd leaf as well by the looks of it. I've got a nice mound of substrate that I'm then going to compress, and it's going to fill in any gaps and spaces underneath the root ball. And with the tree secured, I'm going to lay these longer roots, a bit more soil, and so on until each root has its own small amount of soil. So ideally each root isn't sat on top of other roots. To keep these roots down in some soil, I'll use this little bit of wire as a pin or a staple. There we go. Top it off with a bit more soil. Quick check for any hollows. The roots were so skinny I won't need to chopstick. Then purely to stop the surface of the soil moving around too much, where I've piled it higher to protect the roots near the trunk, just a light sprinkling of shredded moss. Bit thicker in the areas where the hill's a bit steeper. I don't want to fill it right up with soil all the way, that's just going to stay wet. But I do want to make sure the roots near the trunk are covered, nice and protected in there. And to keep the moss in place while I water, light misting. It's just to weigh the moss down so it doesn't move around when I initially water. It's the end of May now, and this Mugo is definitely not dead. And we've had a couple of centimetres of growth, and the buds at the tip are looking like they're developing nicely. We've lost a couple of these weaker interior shoots, but that's not really a surprise. It hasn't gone mad, but then I didn't expect it to. I started adding fertiliser the other day. Now that it's in a majority inorganic soil, the tree will be more inclined to produce fine feeder roots, and that will allow me to cut back more aggressively at the secondary pot. In future, I'll show how to encourage backbuds so that we can compress this sprawling shrub into a bonsai tree form. So if you're about to repot one of your pine bonsai projects, ask yourself, has the root system been in bonsai cultivation for some time? Is it nice and compact with lots of fine feeder roots close to the trunk? Or is it pretty much untouched? Are the roots really long and way outside of the typical dimensions of a bonsai container?